Hello and welcome to Mending the Sacred Hoop. In our conversations, we have been looking at exploring the destructive and malevolent forces that take over humanity, that take over our life and our livelihoods. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Marcia Ann, and we're we, in the first. This is a third of a series. The first one, we were looking at what are the malevolent forces? Why is it important for us to have them? Why do we have them in our life and in our perspective today? Why do they seem even more present in the reality of what we're seeing and playing out into the world? And in this second conversation, we were looking at how did we get here? Where are these forces? And while we begin to look at that, and we tend to think that these dark and malevolent forces are all encompassing and that they actually result in the suicides and murders and these drastic forces, and they certainly do manifest in those circumstances. We began to look at the subtleties of how is it that we have unconscious blind spots, that even in those little points of unconsciousness, the dark and malevolent forces sneak into our thinking, sneak into our relationships, and even our speaking. We speak as victims of the malevolent forces. And we measure the dark and the light, the good and the bad, the dichotomy, the duality of our thinking and how we've been looking at the malevolent forces. We tend to think of ourselves as good people and don't see those unconscious spots that sneak into our own expression, our own relationships with one another. So today we're going to look at how do we move on? How does that awareness give us energy to move on, to move through them, to have them be the lesson that really raises our frequency to the expression where those are not now even needed or brought into our living into the full culture of our benevolent relationship with Mother Earth and with each other. So today we have Gail Thomas with us today for the conversation. We have James who's DeLuca, who has joined us. We also have Michael DiMartino, who's hiding behind his Golden Road banner. And we have Patricia Aguilar, who's joined us from down in Brazil. Thank you so much for being here at your late hour. Patricia Schreiber has here. She's a little bit of just staying behind in the background with our technical support. And Lenny has joined us again today for the conversation. And I want to thank you for being here. Not only because the conversation comes out into the world and then begins in our own thinking to rise us and have us be conscious of the not only the big expressions that we see playing out. We see the wars and the big global play out of the culmination of this dark and malevolent forces. But that on the way, we've had such an incredible opportunity designing and speaking with one another to own the malevolent forces at a whole new level, to see those blind spots and even the subtle blind spots in our thinking and our speaking in working through this among ourselves and working through this to be that expression of wisdom that rises above. How do we own it in such a way that we can, how do we say, neutralize, that we can make it so so clear that we can literally transcend and transform the experience of the malevolent forces, that we can, kind of like the water on a duck's back, we can see those forces, we can have them uh, come through us, and we can resolve them in such a way that we don't need to play them forward in our future anymore. So, Gail, would you like to express some of our journey, some of what you see as the malevolent forces playing out, and how do we rise above it? What do we do to move on from being stuck in that malevolent quality and bring the beauty of who we really are here?
Yes, thank you, Marcia. I'm happy to do that. I like to go back to our original ways of the woodlands people and the plains people, where we all came in as this wave of humans. We came in first, the plains people came in with the ways of the sun, and then my people, the woodlands people, came to earth with the ways of the moon to create balance. And nature seeks balance. So I really like to suggest going back to our original mission on earth, which was to help keep things in balance. We have Selagi prophecy that says we are in the fourth world and we are entering the fifth world. As soon as we learn from the animals to become more human, so that we can continue as this wave of humans. And we say that we learn from the animals because the stones were here first. And I'm going to share a video from a friend who actually used the stones in a very dark position as an intake officer in a jail in Montana. And also, I'm going to give you some other examples of how we create balance with help from our ancestors. The stones are our eldest ancestors because they've been here from the beginning. Then came the water. Together, they brought the plants, and with them came the animals. So that's how the animals are teaching us, and the plants are supporting us as humans. A lot of language translates plants as those who help us. So I'm going to suggest something I do every day. I send up smoke with a tiny piece of the plants with my request for protection and balance throughout the day. I first light the sage and ask the sage to clear the energies. And then I light our native tobacco on this continent called lobelia, and I ask it to lend us its power and its interpretation and take our request to those who can help us the most. And then I use the cedar because we are cedar people. And I ask this cedar to help me call to my ancestors who have done their work so that they will bring me and my dog help and health in every way that we need it. And then I have other plant medicines that I work with. I also sometimes will send up smoke for people who have asked me to make requests for them in particular times that they need a little support. And when we develop this relationship with our spirit helpers, our ancestors who've only those who've done the work, then we have something to call on when we find ourselves in these situations that we identified in our last session. We have a relationship. And if we're fortunate enough to have a ceremony community, Lenny and I both have sweat lodge communities. Patricia does, James does. We all have that community and that support to call on also when we feel like we need help in these situations. And that's what we're talking about tonight, how to deal with these situations that we find ourselves in when we are overtaken by these disembodied spirits, malevolent spirits, dark spirits from the astral realm. You know, the spiritual ways that we came in with were actually ways that are common in many cultures throughout the world. Many cultures use the image of the world tree. And what that does is reaches down into the lower realms where our power animals are, and with the roots of the trees, and then it reaches up into the sky, the higher realms where our teachers and helpers and spirit guides are. And we are here on earth in the middle realm in order to work with the elements, because we are the elements. We are made up of earth, air, fire, and water. And so is everything around us. So is everything on earth. The middle realm can be the realm where the disembodied spirits are stuck. And we can help them. One of my favorite tools for dealing with these spirits is a Lakota song that sends them home. In the Sweat Lodge ceremony, we're very careful to make it a safe place with the sage and the help of the plants and our helpers. And then we have a song. When we light the fire, we lift the veil between the worlds and ask the fire to make it a sacred place so that we can call on our helpers and our ancestors to join us in this effort to unite the three realms and to provide protection for our helpers coming from the other side. Okay, so we work very diligently to maintain this balance that we are here on earth for, so that we may remain in this wave of humans where we all share ancestors and maintain that balance on earth to help with everything, the wars, the darkness, the malevolence, our individual relationships, our health. Everything that we need will come from these practices. And so I had an opportunity when I was talking with a friend who had very unique experience, a direct experience of these ways. And we're going to share a video of her work with the stones, the stone people, so that she can do this in just a minute. First, I want to demonstrate to you the power of laughter in this practice. We can immediately change the energy in the room with just a light or corny or, you know, any lifting of our spirit will lift the energy in the room. So I've got a corny little joke to share with you, and I've offered some more corny little jokes that you can use. So why did the light bulb go to therapy? Because it was afraid of the dark. Okay, see how good that feels? And it's just a silly little laugh. Just a silly little laugh can remove this dark energies just as easily as that. And so at this time, I'm going to thank our tech support, Pamela, for being here with us and helping us go live and helping us present these series and these sessions in recordings for you on the YouTube channel, Guided Transformation, where you can watch them at any time. And Pamela, if you would please play the video of my friend Christine, who's up in Montana and was working as an intake officer and really encountering some dark, malevolent energies. And so she learned to work with the stone people to help her with those energies. And she's going to tell you in this 7-minute video how she did that. So you can do the same. Hello, Christine.
Hello, Gail.
Can you tell us about your experience with the stones and the dark forces?
Sure can. Back in my early 30s, I had moved back to Montana and I met a group of people and I started walking the red road. and started going to ceremony and stuff. And I was fortunate that I met a woman who was very experienced in a lot of modalities and energy work. And we became friends. And she offered me a healing session with what's called laying on of stones. So she knew I had an affinity for rocks. And I picked out the stones, and there's a process, and she lays them on your body. And she has like a map. And then she guides you on a journey. And as I did that journey, I really was astounded at what I saw, literally words. And I saw myself as a different version of me. And I went on this journey and I saw this word trust. And as I'm walking along the edge of this creek to a waterfall, I just kept getting these messages. You really need to just lay it all down and trust in yourself. So I ended up getting a job at a new detention center that was opening up, and it was a very large one. And I went through the training and everything. And when we went to work, I got stationed in booking, which is where people come in and people come out. So I always say you get to see them at their worst and their best. And as I'm doing this job, I'm realizing quickly that I'm dealing with a lot of energy, and a lot of it wasn't so good. A lot of people that had drug addiction, alcohol addiction, came in for violence, a lot of violence, just really a lot of energy. And I'm a sensitive being and very open-hearted and compassionate. So I went to my friend and I'm like, I really feel like I need to work on my field and keeping it strong. So we did a session with dowsing rods, and I'd walk back. I could make them open up, and I'd walk back, and when they started to close, and then I knew like where my field was. And at that point, it was about 8 feet, which is pretty standard. So I started thinking about it, and I'm like, I think I need a stone to wear that will empower myself to keep myself clean and protected from all this energy. So I picked out a black tourmaline because it has the properties of reflecting negativity back. And so I started wearing it in my uniform shirt pocket up here. And as I'm dealing with people and all kinds of situations, it was apparent that I was also a target for some of my superiors. They thought I was too nice and treated people too nice. And I'm like, no, I'm firm, fair, and consistent and treat people with respect and dignity. So as I'm going on this job and really seeing my ability to handle people in a good manner and diffuse and de-escalate situations, it really felt good. And I felt safe, and I was safe. People were amazed at how well I could deal with people. And I got comments on it all the time. And my sergeant was like, this is why you're in booking, because you really know how to deal with people. And so that was great. And yeah, I think it really kept me safe and able to keep my auric field cleaner. So we would gather and meet this group of people and do static body postures and stuff. And I'm like, let's do the dowsing rods again. I'm curious. I want to see. So she brings them out, and I go way out of her office, way across the hall, as far as I could go. And she's like, oh my gosh, your field is so strong. Look at this. It's so strong. And it just clearly showed that I can put my field out there. So I had that validated. And what was really cool is a superior of mine, a coworker who really had it out for me. And he'd come to my workstation when I was on day shift and just try to give me a hard time. And he'd walk in with a bunch of negativity. And I watched him walk through the slider, and it was about 35 feet away. And I'm looking at him, gauging his energy, like, how's this going to go today? And as soon as he got within like that 20 feet, I literally just saw his body language soften, and he actually smiled at me. And by the time he got to me, he's like, hi, how are you? So all the way around, it just really kind of transmuted a lot of negativity. And so ever since then, I've always just been really akin to the stone people. And I wear the jewelry and have them around me. And I use them all the time in my practice now, all the time. So I was really grateful to have that connection because I am so earthbound and earthy and really wanted to empower myself and not look outside myself to have someone else take that responsibility or something else take that responsibility and to accept the responsibility for my own energy as well.
That
Keep it
is a wonderful experience for our topic. Thank you so much, Christine, for sharing this. And
my
I love
pleasure.
working with stones too. I just love calling on the eldest, the ones who've been on earth from the beginning, and developing that relationship with them. So thank you
Plus,
so
it's
much.
the crystalline, the crystalline matrix, and we are crystalline beings, and it's just amazing how they can even just lighten you up. When you're feeling a little down or your field feels a little weak and you feel weak, you can just use it to light you up. Like my Labradorite, I love it,
Yeah.
and I find that this is the protector of light. So your light within, when you light up, this helps keep that pure and lit up and good.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Christine.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail, for bringing that forward. It really sparked in me. A lot of the times when I've traveled in life, no matter where I am, I'm at a beach or something, there's some stone that speaks out to me, says, "Takes me home, put me in your pocket." And it's like so connected to the stone and the quality of the stone. Um, I never really quite understood, but I do feel the stones bringing the messages and how grounding it is to carry them and to be with them. Um, and what I love about that too is that it's that you're not looking, I mean, while you have the stones and the support, you're not giving your power to the stones. It really is accepting the support of the stone and the support of the ancestors and moving into that vibration. So, yeah, beautiful, beautiful support for mastery. Thank you. So I'm going to put the feather on the table. Who next would like to speak to how do we master? How do we move through? How do we see the dark and malevolent forces? Patricia.
Well, good night, good evening to everyone who's here. I'm going to share two things that I think this topic is very, very important to me and that we've been talking about in our circles. But I'm going to share something that came also in a sweat lodge out of, as a what do I do when I'm invaded by these dark forces? And that's something I've observed along my walk in this planet, even though I've done so much, this um invasion, this siege, like Castaneda said, you're sieged with this, you know, energy that does not belong to you. And I observed it, I've been observing it, and I observed more. Now I'm a little better. But there was an experience I had that was very negative, very difficult in my life. And I kept, that negativity, that darkness, that force kept invading me all the time, no matter what I tried or did. And one time at a sweat lodge, and I was sitting in there and I was, helping, all of us to unite. And it came to me the following: let's all talk and describe what's the biggest problem you have. So that is you're being invaded with, that doesn't let you go, this negative emotion. So we're going to talk to the stones, the stones in the sweat lodge, and declare this is the last time I tell my story to myself or to anybody else. Last time, but tell it in details. And so each one of us, in talking out loud, but not hearing what the other one was saying, we started to talk and describe and say this and that, and this happened, da, 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 all the minor details about the whole event that was still overwhelming and had taken over. And so we did that as a ceremony. However, it can be done any moment. To me, this is so important because it keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. And so how do I stop it? I have to make this is it, cut it. So, and I never ever tell the story anymore to anyone, or when I catch myself still, something that wants to invade me, I say, hey, nope, no more. It's like we have to take the hands on our reins, of our path, and we can do it. That's something that I'm sharing as a procedure, as a practice of declaring this is the last time I talk about it, but you have to do it in a ceremonial way, in the sense of, talk about it, tell about all the details, the minor, you know, and you'll find it extraordinary. For me, it was the cleansing. Ooh, wonderful. That's one thing. The other thing that I do, because I feel when I go into social areas like a shopping center, which I hardly ever do, but when I go to certain places, I feel this energy, this dense, dark energy just coming in, penetrating the sound, the smell. It's like there's something in that artificial system that wants to take over and dominate us. So what I do is when I go to these places, I declare, I cover myself with violet color, purple in English, yeah. Like if I, like I have something that's covering me, to protect me, and I'm not going to fall into this space of darkness, which is very common, especially with people that live in the big cities and go to popular and dense places. So I literally, you know, put this covering around me and walk through it, do what I have to do, and that's it. It's like it is so important for us to acknowledge, like we did in our nest, that there are these dark forces. We're not going to get rid of them just like that, with a click of the hands. We have to first acknowledge that they're there. And from there on, what can we do about it? How can we shield ourselves, and use different procedures? Each one will have their experience of working with this, and it is possible. But it's not about denying it and say, no, 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 I'm illuminated. I don't get assaulted by dark force. No, they're there. It's it's amazing. So what are the procedures? How can we deal with them? And I'm sharing two that I've been using constantly is the shield of protection when I go to places where you see it's artificial, the smell, all these things there, and I shield myself and say, okay, but I'm not denying it. And the other one is to take the decision and talk, make a little ceremony about certain things that keep repeating, repeating, and the shadow makes good use of that to get you out of the track. So just in short, that's what I wanted to share here with all of you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Patricia. There's a couple things that you said in um, that really point to we are empathetic beings. We feel those kind of things. And in the society where we have these dark and malevolent forces, we've had to like cut ourselves, close ourselves off from that empathy because we begin to feel those dark and malevolent forces. And I remember one time when I was in a situation and I felt that, and I had to ask myself, am I feeling that or is that me projecting it? So, and you made a comment that was really enlightening to me in our conversations as we were talking about being here today. And you made the comment, you said stalking yourself. And speak a little bit to that, what you mean by stalking yourself.
Yeah, the word stalking is to me very important. It's like the animals, this comes from the tradition of the Toltec tradition, and it's one of the main pillars to stalk oneself and the situation, to observe it. And it's like the animal, he's there just observing to see what is the action he's going to take. Is he going to jump? Is he going to flee? What is he going to do? But you have to, move out of this. Who is this person who's talking? This persona here, blah, 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 And this observer, it's like this other, fourth that is observing this creature here, this persona is who is stalking. And it's not about denial, it's stalking oneself and the situation, the whole field, that they're with our eyes, clear and say, okay, who's talking right now? Who is this Patricia? Am I showing up and blah, 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 blah? Or am I talking from my heart? So this observer is very important for us to develop and use constantly. And usually at the end of the day, I do a stalking exercise, which is I look at the day, boom, 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 how it went through, literally, and I not analyzing, but see, where did I get off track? Where did I get upset? Where did, and it's very good because you see yourself like a film, a little movie that's happening, and you see yourself, when what you said, how your body reacted to that, how what were your emotions, and then if I work on my body, immediately I say, okay, let's get the same scene and just change the position of my body. The whole scene changes. My thoughts change, my emotion changes just by moving something in my body, a contraction. I think I've shared with you guys, I have this thing, they used to call me Mona Lisa because I had this sad eye, behind. It's like, oh, but the contraction of the the nerves of the eyes, that contract and just to dissolve it and relax. It's like opening space to transmuting that energy that had taken over, that dark force. Is just use our bodies is like a key for me. Okay.
I appreciate what you said about it's almost like watching a movie, because if you were producing a movie, you would see the circumstances out there, and then the thought, looking at it and saying, "Oh, isn't that interesting? I see my body getting angry, or I feel the frown on my face. What is that about?" So, observing yourself, not just the circumstances and the immediate story, or even the past story that you're bringing in, but that ability to transcend and observe yourself in the process.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Like stalking oneself. I love that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. We'll put the feather on the table. Who's going to pick up the feather next? Any? How do we transcend? How do we master? How do we move on? How do we uh, leave the old story and not bring it forward? How do we transcend the story? How do we transcend the moment and take the circumstances that may be an expression or an observation or an opinion or of the dark and malevolent forces? How do we work with that? How do we move on?
I guess I can speak now. I usually like to wait to the end, then I can glean all of the collective wisdom of the group and fill in the crack. But I'm going to change the pattern here. So, again, thank you, Marcia, for hosting this important council. This is a really difficult topic. So the first thing I start with because again, we can transform these forces, we can transcend them, which means kind of rise above them, not to be confused with the art of spiritual bypass. And we can also transmutate them. And throw in a joke at any time, Gail, this might get a little bit heavy. So I will say the first thing I do to transform them is I turn off Fox News. And I turn off the propaganda and I turn off the brainwashing that's occurring that want you to be down in the swamp, in the 3D, completely captive of the matrix and all of these malevolent and negative forces that can really affect us. So, this is a difficult topic, and it really, again, for people who might be watching this is not how we spend our time. This is a response to our initial series of Mending the Sacred Hoop. But we realize in mending it, we have to lift up the rug, we have to open the closet, let the skeletons fall out, that there's a lot of stuff in the shadows that needs to be identified. We can't just have fairy dust and, be bliss ninnies, just avoiding the reality, especially in this day and age where we look around and we see so much happening, so much what I would call is like attributes of negativity and divisiveness and conflict and all these things that are these forces, because a lot of people are like, well, I feel it, but what is it? Things like jealousy, greed, anger, lust, all of these things can really become these beings. They have a life force, there's an energy to them, and a lot of spiritual traditions, they have very specific practices. Like in Buddhism, they talk about our constant need to consume, and they call that the hungry ghost energy. So it's always looking outside of yourself to consume something to make you feel better, to make you feel whole, to make you feel at peace. That could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be food addiction, whatever it might be. So I do want to say, in that hungry ghost realm, when we consume, we also have to think about we are what we eat. So whatever we consume, we're ingesting, which becomes we are what we actually digest. And unfortunately, a lot of foods are not organic. A lot of foods have hormones, antibiotics, and pesticides. So, right there, we start to think about this idea of transforming, transmutating. We'll get to transcending these negative influences and forces. So I'm speaking purely on a physical level right now. You are what you eat, you are what you digest. So I always recommend a better diet. It's a kind of a good core place to start, taking care of our own biome, our own internal environment. And that gets into the idea of radical self-responsibility. Now, I'm not going to get into that. It might mean something different for different people, but you literally, if we are what we eat and what we digest, you have to kind of, excuse the expression, you have to own your shit. And if your shit stinks, then you have to take the radical self-responsibility to change that and not point at others and blame others. Because when I point at someone, it's like, okay, there's three fingers pointing back at me. So it really starts for me on a physical level. So I love the idea of bioresonance, like Grandmother Gail was talking about, being in nature, forest bathing, just being in a world that is much more pure to our natural, traditional way of being before all of this industrialization and everything has become so technological and has taken us out of nature. So that's like the first core thing. I also like things like yoga and qigong to help me get more embodied and kind of help bring my mind and body together in some sort of resonance. Because if you're out of balance, you're going to be easy prey. I see Patricia's got her thumb up. I know she's a qigong yogini. But if you're not in balance, you're going to be like easy pickings for these forces just to feed on. Also, you know, we're in the age where everybody realizes that everything is based on frequency. So one way to help transform or transmutate these energies is through sound. You know, you can go out in nature, you can hear birds, or I know, you know, right now in this day and age, everyone likes sound baths, and people will buy crystal bowls and will use the bowls to kind of get into a space of letting that sound do some energetic cleaning for them. The other thing we want to realize on the physical level is what we say, our words, right? It goes to the root, and I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole too far, but when we write things out, when we speak, we're spelling, right? That's what we call it. Oh, I'm spelling out a word. So whenever we speak, whatever we write, we're invoking into, through the quantum mechanics, into the energetic reality of our ecosystem. So it's kind of like you are what you eat, but you're also what you say and what you write. So the last thing I wanted to say is like, you know, again, I talked a little bit about you have to claim your space physically, and this could be done through a lot of ways. Burning sage, through creating visualizations, intention. I know some people will spread salt in a certain space, or in Hinduism, they use mustard seed. They put mustard seeds in a space to say, I'm claiming this space, and these are typically some of the plants and the medicines that help defend against some of these more nefarious energies. And of course, for me, going back to the biome, right? I tend to do a lot of, well, not a lot, but I tend to do annually several times parasite cleanses using things like wormwood, black walnut, and clove, because if your gut is infested with parasites, you're already invaded by outside entities that are sapping your life form, your energy, tapeworms, whatever it might be. Again, you know, your dietary choices are yours, but I do recommend in a toxic world, defend your innermost, your biome, which will extend externally. Really quickly, I want to go through some of the spiritual elements of transforming or transcending. I think compassion works really good, but compassion can also be seen as weakness by some of these energies, which will attract them. So you have to be compassionate. Don't become like walking around in armor all the time and shielded from the world. You know, Wilhelm Reich talked about spiritual armoring. Be compassionate, but have that armor, like claim your energy, claim yourself, and that means going beyond blame. There's also things like, you know, again, owning our auric field, owning what I'm experiencing, my environment, not blaming everything like that car or this or that. It's like in Buddhism, owning radical self-responsibility of the choices that we've made to put ourselves in this opportunity to learn and to evolve. So look at everything like, okay, this is my decisions that brought me here, and these are ways that I can actually spiritually mature. I also want to acknowledge, of course, stone people. Big shout out to stone people. Also, I know a lot of people like to, you know, burn different plants. Also, I know some people work with dream catchers, because sometimes at the night when you're in journeying into other aspects of your consciousness, you can be very not conscious of what's happening, and you know, things like dream catchers help filter out some of that energy. So, you know, going more into the ritualistic, ceremonial aspects. And then I love sacred songs. A lot of times in our council we'll have sacred songs, and sometimes saying these songs will help clear the space, because these forces will recognize it like, oh, this person knows what's going on. I'm going to go look for some easy target somewhere. So these are all aspects. And I say, you know, in a world of ritual, ceremony, so many people are, you know, ceremonialists and using psychoactive plants and these types of medicines. Like, whenever I'm around that, I don't personally imbibe, but I always call in the sacred. I call in the Holy Spirit. I don't want to sound too Christianized about it, but I call in the sacred spirit, because when we do these things, we can call in other energies that are spiritual energies, ancestors, whatever they might be, but there's also a lot of disembodied beings that can use that invitation to latch onto your energy and enjoy like in the Matrix, using you as a battery where they're just siphoning your chi and your life force. And lastly, this is why I usually go last. I don't want to babble too much. There's some great other presenters here. I'm looking forward to hearing from Lenny and our new brother here, James, if he wants to share. But I think emotionally, I've learned to own my shit, and I do that by meditating and coming to a place of balance and peace within myself. I kind of find when I'm balanced, there can be a hurricane of drama and emotion going on, and I feel I can feel that because we are empathic creatures, like Marcia said, but I don't get wrapped up in the cyclone of it. I can kind of stand my ground. So part of it is like, owning your own emotional body. And then there's the visualization I love using is when that happens, like, okay, this emotional thing, this experience is a cloud passing on an empty sky. So even though it's there obscuring the sun and the light, eventually this too will pass and the sun will come back out. So it's like, don't be a drama queen or a drama king and let that control you. Just realize it's another part of welcome to the University of Earth and the spiritual school. And I think the biggest thing is, I always, drugs and alcohol, there's a reason they call alcohol spirits. I see so many people just addicted and possessed and their whole life crashes down. Rarely have I met a drug addict or alcoholic that has an amazing life and is successful and feeling extremely blessed. It's not a judgment, it's just my own little modest perception. And then lastly, own your shadow. The shadow is there as a teacher for you to help you in your evolution. Don't throw your shadow away. Work with it and transform it in your self-awareness to be able to be a more conscious, compassionate, kind, collaborative human being. So that's all I had to share today. Thank you.
Yes, beautiful. That the habit of bringing the shadow forward, like Patricia said, the habit of re-speaking the story, bringing the story forward. What story are we're taking from the past and bringing to the future? We have, as the living frequency right here, we have the opportunity to mitigate bitterness and grief in the moment as we transcend and own, like you said, neutralize and bring to completion the dark energy and move it to a new expression. Any habit that we have, and even what you were talking about being consumers. Consume means destroy. So here we are speaking, consume, and we're talking about ourselves being consumers. Well, we're really speaking into the world that we're the destroyers. And so the consciousness of what we're saying and the attention that we have to the moment of the story that we're playing out right in front of us as we observe ourselves making the story happen. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Michael.
I will say just lastly, if all else fails, fire is a great force. Write out some things on paper, throw it into a fire. And if that fails, I love dancing with swords.
And what you were talking about too, about kind of like breaking the habit of the breaking character, so to speak. I remember when I went down to the Earthstock celebration down in Crestone, and I worked with Patricia, and we did all the body work, and we did the dancing, and we did that. I mean, I came back so energized and so different from how I left, that just breaking the character of my daily routine. I think that's really some of the focus on why do we take a vacation, to break the routine so we can go in and take and shift the character of the life that we bring forward. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Michael. So the question, how do we transform? What are the tools that we have for mastery of our own malevolent forces, of the forces that we see playing out, and the ones that we attribute to the character of our society? Anybody else?
James,
Well,
will you go next?
yeah, it
Thank you,
will.
James.
Um, what I was thinking when I was listening to everything, there's only one thing that for me comes to mind that I could add, because every one of these things that you guys have talked about are great things. They're tools, they're things that we've been given to everybody. All people have been given these tools all over the earth, and they were given to us to help us. You know, it doesn't matter, red, black, white, yellow. We've all been given these tools. The only other thing that I would add to that is community. Community like what we're doing here. Um, and I don't, you know, Gail, you can maybe help me with this a little bit too, because I think it's an Iroquois analogy with the arrow. You know, an arrow by itself is easy to break, but you put a bundle of arrows together and it's very hard to break, which to me, that's community. That's like us here, anything like that that we're doing, it's hard to break. That malevolent, that evil, you know, anything, it's very, very hard to break. So that's what I would like to add to this.
Yes, very beautiful. Yes, that we give permission to point out those moments or those speaking or the habits that we've brought forward, the malevolence even in the unconscious, because there's so much of it is just this unconscious habit that slips in and slips in through our speaking or even our listening, and we sit back and judge somebody out of that even just a judgment can be one part of the malevolent force creeping in. Lenny, it looks like you're maybe ready to.
I'd love to share it. I really enjoy everything that's being said tonight. It's kind of reflects a story I'm going to share in a second. It's from the past. It's from First Nation culture. We started the series actually talking about the Wendigo, the Wetiko, depending on what tribal stories they came from. Today I'm going to share the Chinoo, which is basically the same as the Wetiko Wendigo, but it's from the Passamaquoddy and the Mi'kmaq people. It's one of the stories that was first recorded back in 1884 by Charles Leland, and it was in the Algonquin Legends of New England. The one I'm going to give you a abbreviated version of it because his is quite long if you ever want to read the original. This was actually shared by a teacher for her children. The Wendigo or the Chinoo is a being that consumes itself, like we are talking. If you get caught up in something, Michael was saying, and so is Masha, it consumes us. Well, that's exactly what the Chinoo is. It consumes its own flesh by eating just human flesh, and it won't eat anything else. And it eventually just consumes its own flesh. So yes, we can be totally taken over just by our own consumption, whether that's out there in the physical world of things that we buy or something we get addicted to, that consumption. So the story starts out up here in the north in Canada, where I am, in the North Country. Of course, it's a story of ice and cold. It's ice heart. There was a family of three older brothers and a younger woman, a daughter, and it wasn't daughter or sister. And they made the wigwam. They made a winter camp because they want to go out hunting in that. And so they're away from the tribe and the community, and they're out there alone. And one night the brothers were really silent. Why are you so quiet? The sister said. Well, I saw some strange footprints to the north, the eldest said, like those of a man, but much larger. Me too, said the brother who went to the south. The third brother agreed. They knew the footprints were from the Chinoo monster. The Chinoo was a cruel giant, Hannibal from the north. Well, perhaps it was just a bear, and the boys all laughed. But the girl, she didn't laugh. She had seen the footprints and knew it was not a bear. They were from a canoe. And the girl did, her usual things the next day to keep the camp going and the wigwam comfortable. And the boys and the men were all out hunting. She made a big warm bed in the middle of the wigwam. She pushed baskets of fruit next to the bed. She gathered in fresh firewood and then sat by the fire and waited. At twilight, there was a noise in the woods. She looked up, and there was the canoe. What a sight to behold! Very impaled, skin just basically no flesh at all, dripping in places. Everything has been consumed by itself, the lips all chewed up. And he looked very angry. But the sister, she smiled at the beast and said, "Grandfather, I'm happy to have you come to see us. I prepared a fire for you to be warm, or would you like to lie down first and rest? Your bed is made, and there are baskets of fruit by it. Well, you look tired from your travels." Well, Chenu was surprised at this greeting. He expected screaming and running in terror. He let the young girl lead him into the wigwam, confused. And the girl brought him clothes she had made to fit him. She told him to wash and dress, and the monster sat inside the wigwam, sad and confused. The young girl collected more wood, and the Chenu followed her. She was very frightened, but that's not what she put forward. It was compassion and caring, because she was afraid it would kill and eat her like Chenus like to do. She went out, collected more firewood, and the Chenu said, "Well, give me the axe." And soon the monster had cut up an enormous pile of firewood, because these monsters are tall and strong. And the young girl called, "Grandfather, there's enough. You must be tired from all your cutting. Please rest." So Chenu walked into the wigwam and slept. And when her three brothers returned, she told them, brothers, you'll be pleased to know our grandfather is in the tent. We must be silent and give him time to rest." Well, the brothers did not understand. What grandfather? At that moment, that huge, hairy-headed Chenoo looked out of the wigwam, and before her brothers could be frightened, the girl said with a smile, "Oh, grandfather, you are awake. I'm glad, because now your grandsons have come back, and we can all have dinner." Turning to her brothers, she asked, "How was the hunt today?" "Well, not so good," answered one of the brothers, staring at Chenoo. "All I have is this hare." "And a goose," said her second brother, staring at the Chenoo. "And a deer," replied the third. Well, Chenoo spoke. "Granddaughter, have your brothers brought no other game?" "Whatever your grandsons have hunted today, I will cook for your dinner, grandfather," said the girl. Chenoo disappeared into the woods, and when he returned, he carried 3 moose. Oh my, what a feast they enjoyed. As the days passed, they began to realize Chenoo could be useful. He could be helpful. He could hunt better than 20 men. He built his own wigwam after a while, and the brothers and the sisters moved back into their own. They stopped worrying about him, that he would eat them, and the 3 brothers. They were respectful to the monster. Winter came. Winter was passing, and spring was coming. And one day the girl said, "Grandfather, soon it will be time for us to return to our village." "Well, I would like to come with you," said Chenoo. "But your people would scream if they saw me. I need your help." "Of course, grandfather, anything." "Well," she said, "build me a sweat lodge. Bring hot coals to it. Bring in those stone people." And the girl was surprised, but they built the sweat lodge, and they made it very hot. The Chenoo went inside. "Bring me more hot coals." 5 times the children brought in more and more and more hot rocks for the fire. And the girl Chenoo could hear him moaning and coughing. But instead of saying that's enough, he said, "Bring me some more. I need more of those hot coals. I need many more." So after 6 hours, the door opened, and the Chinoo monster didn't look like a monster anymore. He looked like an old human man with a long hair and just, he coughed and out came a piece of ice in the shape of the man. It was the ice heart of the Chinoo, and legend says that the hearts of Chinoos are made of ice in the shape of a man. Well, throw it in the fire, granddaughter, he said. And she threw that ice heart into the flames, and it disappeared. And Chinoo smiled. Let's go, he said. So they took all the bear and the deerskins, the basket full of dried meat, back to the village, where the village welcomed them, and they lived happily ever after, as the fairy tales would go. Well, this story, it's not the usual story. I actually had to dig quite a bit to find it. Because most of the stories, they actually kill the Chinoo. Because it's said that most Chinoos that are possessed, or most people that are possessed that way, the only way to really free their heart is through death. So there's a lot of stories of, even recorded back after, the colonials came and took everything over, and of course started denying all these legends and said that's just fairy tales and whatnot. That, there's a lot of records of there's like Jack Filler that I mentioned. He was actually a Wendigo hunter. He went out and hunted these for the tribes because that was one way they dealt with that, to protect the community. And it was a community decision because traditionally it's the community and the women elders. And that's why we have a grandmother's council here, because it's the grandmothers who would make those decisions. So I wanted to share this story because it talks a lot about that consumption. It talks about being so consumed. But what did the girl show? She showed compassion. She showed caring. And if we show that compassion, we can transform anything. But it can't be, a compassion on the surface. It has to be genuinely so deep within yourself that you are just radiating nothing but universal love, caring. And what's the opposite of compassion? Consumption, where we get selfish and care for our own things. That's when we're not compassionate. That's what the darkness in the world feeds on. In my personal experience of working with darkness, we have to let in darkness and somehow. We invite it in a way. And it looks for those cracks. Those that are really light and bright, the darkness can see that through the darkness. It's a bright light. And they don't want that. So that's why we have so many children these days that are full of wonderful gifts, but they're out of balance, as we've been talking about, everyone's been talking about tonight. We lose that balance, allows the darkness in to take and corrupt that light of those gifts of light that these children have. It's the seventh generation children. And that is what we need to protect ourselves from. That is what we need to protect our children from, to keep them aware. And how do we keep them aware? It's like everyone's been saying tonight. It could be to walk impeccable, to walk, you find that quietness, that place of strength in yourself, that place where you are at one with nature. You're at one with not just nature, but all existence. And when you're in that quiet place and totally at one, you are filled with universal love. You are filled with compassion to all things. It's just one and the same. And that's what we strive for. When we do ceremony, first thing we do, doesn't matter what the ceremony is, we do like Gail said, we smudge the area. We make a protected space because we know we can't find that place if we're not protected. And that protection, we start outwardly protect the space, but we're calling in everything. And actually, we're not calling in. What we're really saying is, hey, if you're not connected to all things, if you don't have that, you're not welcome here. You're just not welcome. And that's how we protect ourselves, even on a personal level. We do that ceremonially. We make a place and a space where all that thing is just not protect. It's just not welcome. It can't come. We create that quiet space. And that's what I do personally as well, whether it's a personal smudge in the morning, whether it's greeting the sun and the energy of the sun, is finding that personal space. We all have our own ways to do that. And there's many ways to do it, but you really have to not allow any cracks. You have to find that place where we're all connected. If you see darkness around you, it could come in your dreams looking for that crack. It could come in the form of somebody you know as a friend. It will use any way it can into you. And that's why when you're out of balance or confused, you allow so many cracks. You might think you're doing the right thing. You might think you're helping everybody, but believe me, I know from personal experience, darkness knows how to manipulate and twist and trick you into believing those things. But I'll guarantee you won't have that connection to all things. And that's really what walking the sacred hoop is all about, having that connection. So that's, don't let the fear in. Transform it, as everyone's been saying tonight. Transform that to that place of compassion and love, and darkness will not be able to enter you and those. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Lenny. So much occurred in my mind while you were speaking and telling the story. I thought of the story, and I encourage people to look for S.D. Young Wolf's book about the echo people and how they're putting the echo out, and what you put out, the echo comes back. And talking about whether it's the stones, the ancestors, the fire, find that tool that is your reminder that as we come into the world of darkness and light, maybe the deepest darkness gives us an opportunity for the experience of the greatest light, that we have the ability in our experience to transform what's in front of us to the higher frequency, to the frequency of light. And there are numerous tools, as we've talked about tonight. Each one of us saw and in the expression of the tools that we maybe use all of those tools from time to time, and having the relationship not only with the rocks and the nature and our experience, but having relationships with one another where we have given permission to show and to speak and to point into those areas of unconsciousness that give us the opportunity to take a new experience, to take a new judgment, to take a new opportunity to reassess, to rework, to be new in what looks or may look like the same experience of darkness. Oh, thank you all so much for being. Last comments, shares. We are coming to the closing of our time frame here, so who would like to, any burning shares on the way out, as we complete here today?
Why
Michael,
do
you
ghosts
go ahead, Gail.
why do ghosts go to parties? For the booze.
For
We
the
didn't touch
booze.
on the substance
Yes,
risk, on the
Because
out of
yes. The
substance
spirits
risk.
are always invited, aren't they?
there's no body at home.
Nobody,
Yes.
right? That's why the
Uh-huh.
skeletons go too.
Yes, beautiful. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
just
all so much for your sharing today, and thank you all who are joining us today for this experience. I look forward to having you all contribute your awareness, your light, as we begin to work in and incorporate into the balance of our own being the darkness that we can transmute to the greatest light that's available. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao.
Beautiful. Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you, girls. Thank you, boys. See you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Gail. Thank you,